Good afternoon and welcome to More Tea Minister. My name is Ian. Today we are looking at a white tea from Vietnam. It's a counterpart to the video that we put together a couple of weeks ago, the Suoi Giang white peony. This time we are looking at the Suoi Giang silver needle, which is from Curious Tea. Let me show you the packaging because I always enjoy the packaging from Curious Tea. As I say, this is a counterpart in two senses. First of all, the white peony was a free gift. It was a sample sent along with a purchase, so it wasn't sent for review. And the same is true of the silver needle version as well. But this video is a counterpart in the more technical sense that silver needle is a grading, shall we say, of white tea, one up from white peony or Bai Mudan. So what we have here, once again, is a white tea that comes from a commune, the Suoi Giang commune in northern Vietnam, and it's produced by ethnic Hmong families who moved from Vietnam from southern China a few centuries ago now. Now, before we go into any more detail, I'm just going to, as always, brew this tea both Western style and Gongfu. So we've got the water at 80 degrees centigrade. I'm using my small teapot here. So there's only 1.6 grams of tea, and we'll put in 160 mils of water and let that steep for 3 minutes. And then we'll talk a little more about the tea, then we'll try it, and then we'll move on to the Gongfu style. So let me get this filled and steeping. And then we'll address the tea in a little more detail. Let me set my timer on my tablet. So let me show you what these leaves look like up close. Hopefully what you can see is a lovely silver color, yes, but amongst that there are some darker ones as well. These individual needles, as they're called, aren't needles in the sense that a conifer has needles. These are actually buds, they're leaf buds. And the flavor profile that you get from the leaf buds is somewhat different than you get from the next grade down, if we can put it that way, from the more unfolded leaves of white peony. I always find there's a very intense sweetness from these. Now, the other distinctive feature about this tea is that it's actually wild tea. It's coming from wild tea trees, and it's a Assamica varietal as well, which helps to explain why it's not a more uniform silver color. Remind you, you've got much darker ones in there, and some that look almost bleached. Oh, that's a good picture. The reason for that is that's what the Assamica strain does when you dry it out. Let me be clear about that. What's the other thing about white tea is that it's the most minimally processed kind of tea. Even less processed than green tea, because green tea always has to undergo a kill green process to prevent any oxidation. White tea can undergo a bit more variety in that respect, but the idea is to put all the natural processes within the leaves, or buds in this case, into hibernation. So by a long, more or less, withering process or drying out of the tea leaves, whether it's done in shade, whether it's done in sunlight, what you do is to reduce the rate at which the leaves can naturally undergo oxidation. So that provides a more stable platform for aging the tea, whether in loose format or more famously in the case of compressed tea cakes. Now, I don't know, because I haven't researched, whether there are any tea cakes available of this Vietnamese white tea. I haven't seen any on Curious Tea's website. The reason I mention that is it's very often, but not exclusively, the next grade down, Shu Mei, which I think means longevity eyebrows. Fantastic translation. And that's what's converted most often into compressed tea cakes, whether that's Vietnamese or Chinese compressed tea. Let me just check how we're doing. That's fantastic. That's our timing up. So let's give this tea a pour. We'll give it a sample. We'll give it a try. And the reason I'm using the small teapot is because these needles don't expand a great deal as they're steeping. So you don't need to use a big teapot, and you don't need to use a big amount of tea. So let's take a look at the color. That's pretty much spot on, goldy green, I would say. That's something that I would normally associate with silver needle tea. It's sweet, almost caramelly sweet. There's a leafiness to it, a freshness. I don't want to say it's vegetal. It doesn't have that savory note that I associate with green teas, at least. It's full of freshness and it's very sweet, almost caramelly. Let's try a sample of it. The same again. It's just a wonderful blast of freshness. It's very intense. It could probably stand to be a little bit warmer or slightly longer steeping. The finish is dropping off quickly, but it's only from this year. In fact, it was harvested in April, so I'm sure aging might help as well. But that's really, I could happily drink this all, but I'm going to pour it off, and I may come back to that later. So let's move our teapot out of the way so I don't get confused. I'm going to use a smaller gaiwan today. I had in mind that I would try and spare some of the tea in this sample. Normally by the time we'd done a Western and a Gongfu, all 10 grams of this would be gone. But I'm hoping to save a bit, I think, but I'll double check that this is 5. But the gaiwan, once these teas are in and the water's in, probably only holds somewhere up to about 90 mils. I did check. Empty, it's 100 mils, but it's not empty, is it? So let's get our water in and we'll give it a very brief steeping. We're going to give that, oh, there's a wonderful caramel already. We'll just give that another few seconds, maybe a total of 15 for this one. It's the freshness that comes off on that first steep from the lid. Freshness plus a savouriness. The sweetness hasn't come through yet. The colour on this very first brief steep, trying to make sure you get it about spot on. Ah, there we go. That's the sunlight coming through the window. I would say that's about spot on. A pale gold green. Yep, it's mostly the savoury and the freshness that's there. As I say, I don't want to say savoury in the sense of green tea. It's not vegetal, but it's not just pure sweetness. There's a hint of sweetness, but not a lot. Bit of caramel, definitely. Maybe that's why it seems savoury. I'm actually going to bump that up to 85. I feel as if that might benefit the tea. So, just a reminder, this is a Vietnamese white tea, and I do have a few others from outside China for us to look at together. And I say that because most of them I haven't tried for myself. So this tea is at 85. probably about 90 mils, 85, 90. And we'll push that maybe up to 20, but given it's 5 degrees warmer, it might be more sensible to keep it closer to 15. Then we'll see where it takes us. Do you know that's almost mint? Because I think it's freshness and sweetness, but the freshness is so intense, it really is like mint. The colour, oh, that's a lot more golden, isn't it? Ah, there, again, right in the way of the sunbeam. That's a lot more golden. Yeah, that has made a big difference. We've got the sweet and the freshness all coming through at once. It's almost fruity. And it's not dropping off either. I can't really describe it, but you can tell when it's either dilute or there's too much water, or it hasn't been brewed for long enough or hot enough. The flavour just drops away. It doesn't sort of just decline. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's intense. It's fruity. It is definitely fruity, and it's sweet. There's something herbal in there as well. Let's give the next one a little bit longer. I wouldn't want to make it any hotter. But there's wafts of mint just coming off this. Just from the previous steep. Let's push this a few seconds past 20. And then we'll call it quits because we're only at 12 minutes and I wouldn't want the video to take any longer than it absolutely had to do. Yep, that mint's coming through very strongly. Right, let's see where that takes us. I wasn't really anticipating needing the wide-brimmed strainer, but I don't often use this Gaiwan, so I'm glad I took the effort. The colour, more yellow again. Yep, that's right. Oh, yep, that's definitely fruity and sweet. Incredibly fresh. That very intense, almost minty herbal note has gone, but it's still just fantastic. And it's like the previous cups, they're still lingering on the palate. That's always a good sign. There's definitely a kind of savoury quality still there, but it's fresh, it's fruity, very sweet. It's a kind of intense flavour you'd expect from, well, the same year's harvest of white tea. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to finish that. The mint's there in the background. Whoop. That'll teach me to be greedy. So I think there's definitely more steeps to go in this, and in fact I am going to try for another 2 steeps. I may just put the heat up for a bit long. I may just brew it for a bit longer or have extra heat. I haven't decided yet. What can we say? I got this from Curious Tea. Vietnamese white tea, I don't recall, because I haven't looked, seeing anywhere else. I have personally purchased white tea from Sri Lanka and from Burma, if memory serves. And I've only found those in, sorry, I beg your pardon, the Burmese I've only found in one place. Sri Lankan silver needle tea, especially, I've seen in a few vendors. Vietnamese, I don't know. You can also find white tea from Laos as well. My point in saying all of that is I can't say for certain, in all honesty, how available white tea from Vietnam is, but you can certainly find it from out with China and even out with Taiwan without much difficulty at all. And in fact, I've got a lot from Japan to have a look at as well. The taste profile is absolutely outstanding. The white peony I really enjoyed, but that almost mint herbal note in this, coupled with the fruit and the sheer amount of sweetness, makes it really, really amazing. And it's not one-dimensional sweetness, as you may have guessed from all the other parts to the flavor profile. Is it easy to brew? With the Western style, as always, nothing easier. This 80, 85 degrees, short steeps. It's really not complicated. I don't think it will take any adjust the water, then adjust the heat and anything. Maybe just bump it up one more time to 90 if absolutely necessary, but relatively easy for Gongfu. So I think that's 3 out of 3. So it's a thumbs up from me. If I had 3 thumbs, it'd be 3 thumbs up. All that remains for me to say is happy steeping and God bless.